President Donald Trump announced during a press conference at the White House that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has agreed to support a U.S. peace plan to end the Gaza conflict. Joining me now is Washington Stand reporter Casey Harper, who's been following the story throughout the day. So, Casey, what does the 21-point peace plan include, and how did the Prime Minister respond?
Yeah, well, thanks, Tony. This plan calls for a ceasefire, hostage swaps, and a path to lasting peace and security. President Trump says they're very close to a deal, and he hopes Hamas will accept it. For Netanyahu himself, he said that he praised Trump's leadership and he would support the plan.
I support your plan to end the war in Gaza, which achieves our war aims. It will bring back to Israel all our hostages, dismantle Hamas's military capabilities, end its political rule, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel.
With that being said, Netanyahu added that if Hamas refuses the plan, Israel will continue its campaign to root out the Hamas terrorists in Gaza. And this comes after a wave of countries recognized the Palestinian state at the United Nations last week. And Tony, it now appears that the annexation of Judea and Samaria is off the table. More than 200 evangelical leaders, led by the Family Research Council, are calling on President Donald Trump to support Israel's claim to Judea and Samaria. In a letter sent Sunday, they urged President Trump to back Israel's right to apply sovereignty over that territory, which many call the biblical heartland, Tony.
Yeah, that's right, Casey. The letter that we helped put together says Israel's control of Judea and Samaria would make the country stronger. And not only that, it aligns with both Scripture and history. So, frankly, this should be a non-negotiable issue for U.S. policy, that Israel has the right to exercise sovereignty over that region. And as you mentioned, it did not come up in this meeting, so that's at least a good sign for now. We'll have to wait to see where this plan leads. We'll talk more about that later. But I want to turn to a deeply troubling event, and this is the attack on the Mormon meeting house in Michigan yesterday. What do we know about that, Casey?
Yeah, Tony, this is a sad story. Authorities in Michigan are investigating a deadly attack at a Mormon meeting house in Grand Blanc. The 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford, a former Marine and Iraq War veteran, he drove his truck into the Mormon meeting house during a service, opened fire, and then allegedly set the building on fire. He was later killed in a shootout with police, leaving at least 4 people dead, 8 others injured, and in fact, some people are still unaccounted for. So this, unfortunately, it fits this trend we're seeing, Tony, for a few years here of violence in the U.S.
Yeah, Casey, you're right. In fact, a recent report from Family Research Council shows that U.S. churches are still facing a high number of hostile incidents, including threats, vandalism, and arson, and increasingly more attacks with guns.
We found 415 incidents of hostility against churches, and compared to 2018, when we found 50, that is a massive increase over a small amount of years. And the fact that we're seeing more incidents of these acts of hostility against churches seems to indicate a rise in this sort of animosity towards Christianity in our culture.
That was our own Ariel de Turco, author of the Hostilities Against Churches report, who spoke about that last month, about the incidents that have been tracked in 2012. And while we're seeing rising hostilities against Christians here in America, religious freedom is also under a threat overseas. Pastor Son Hun Bao has been arrested on charges of violating election law, and is charged with violating election law for apparently supporting conservative candidates.
Right.
What do we know about that, Casey?
Yeah, so Pastor Son of Busan Seguro Presbyterian Church, he's a well-known conservative voice and leader of the Save Korea movement, but he was charged today with breaking election laws. Pastor Son has been a vocal supporter of protecting traditional values and opposing the impeachment of former President Yoon Suk-yeol. Prosecutors accuse him of promoting conservative candidates during church services and sharing his message online, including a meeting with American conservative activist, the late Charlie Kirk, earlier this year. So there's growing concern about government hostility towards Christians in the country. In fact, South Korean Christian leaders met here at Family Research Council to discuss the threat to religious freedom in their country, John.
Thanks, Casey. We're going to talk about that a little bit later with Travis Weber when he joins us. So we'll talk to you later, Casey. Thanks so much for giving us the headlines.